Hello and welcome to TheAIbumMan. In this video we're going to be talking about F, the new album by Radiohead's Ed O'Brien. EOB is the new solo project from Radiohead's most underrated member, Ed O'Brien, and I think that before we get into dissecting this record, it's really important to understand Ed's approach to music as a whole, and we can do that by looking at his role in Radiohead. When you think about Radiohead and guitars, you might first think about Tom York at the front with his beautiful voice, guitar in hand, playing a core riff or a rhythmic part to accompany what he's singing. You might then think of Johnny Greenwood with his hair strewn over his face, playing the lead parts, ranging from frantic violent chords to beautiful melodies. So where in this does Ed O'Brien fit in? Well, he's the guy who elevates what everyone else is doing with complementary guitar parts designed to fit around what the rest of the band is doing and occupy the space in between the other members in order to create a richer and more nuanced musical landscape. Ed isn't about the riffs or the solos, he's about looping, harmony, and rhythm. In his first solo effort produced by Flood of Nick Cave and U2 fame, this approach to guitar playing is omnipresent, though by the nature of this being a solo album, albeit one that features many different guest musicians, Ed is still forced into the forefront. No longer is he just accompanying other people's guitar parts, but instead he's complementing his own. The result of this is a Johnny Marr-inspired approach to guitar playing, and as a result this album is certainly a headphone listen. It's full to the brim with sonic depth, a tapestry of multi-layered guitar parts, interwoven with vocal melodies, while still being centered fundamentally on groove and rhythm, at least on highlights of the album such as Shangri-La, Brasil, or Olympik. But now that we've established the tone and the approach that Ed takes to the guitar and his songwriting, let's delve into what the results of it are. At the core of this album is a duality. It's an album which pushes and pulls in two different, though not mutually exclusive, directions. On the one hand, Ed expresses himself with introspective, gentle, more acoustic-driven songs, stuff like Mass, Sail On, or Cloak of the Night. But on the other hand, he expresses himself through primal scream-inspired, joyful, vibrant, rave-like rhythms grounded in rock music. It is a duality which I guess ultimately serves to weaken the record, giving it a lack of overall cohesion or direction, but there are times when these two disparate elements come together, combine, and make some really beautiful music. Brasil is probably the song which best encapsulates this duality, and especially the combination of this duality than any other single song on the album. It begins as a tender, acoustic, folk ballad with Ed's voice sung merely a little louder than a whisper, and it sets the tone for this to be an acoustic ballad. But then around the 3-minute mark, something unexpected happens. An electronic beat comes to the forefront. Colin Greenwood, Radiohead's bassist, enters the fray with his bass, and the song becomes a more, house-inspired song, taking greatly from the aforementioned rave sound present in Primal Scream's Screamadelica, which was a major influence on Ed when writing this album. Well, it's an unexpected transition, and at first I had to check that it was even the same song playing. I thought maybe this was just a seamless transition into a new song. It's one that really works thematically. The title of the song Brasil comes from the time which Ed O'Brien spent in Brazil. He went there and planned on writing a more electronic album on Ableton, inspired by the artist Burial, but he didn't feel that. Instead, in Brazil, he felt the sounds of Primal Scream, and he saw Brazil's carnivals. That filled his ears, and I feel that the change in direction here in this song of Brasil is really reflective of that. Because here, we move from Ed's introspection to the joy-inspired, pulsating, rhythmic nature of the carnival of Brazil. Ed transports us to that time and place, and the way in which it's stored within his mind. Generally, it's the more energetic half of the album, songs like Brasil, which are the most engaging, while some of the slower songs unfortunately become a little bit bogged down on their focus on atmosphere to almost the expense of everything else. With masses, sonic landscapes, evocative, perhaps of recent Dave Gilmour releases, and taking more from ambient music as a whole more than anything else, or Sail On, which is my least favourite track on the record. Well, unquestionably it's a heartfelt track about the passing of Ed's late cousin. It's a song which I feel basks firmly within its own glow. It offers little to the listener, it just kind of ethereally drifts on by, its delay-coated guitars and reverb, allowing it to just pass by the listener as almost background music. It just doesn't quite have an emotional nor musical hook. However, that's not to say all the slow songs are not quite as good. The gentle closer, Cloak of the Night, featuring the folk singer Laura Marling on guest vocals, accompanying Ed's vocals in a harmony, is a really beautiful little tune. If anything, it's a bit unfortunate that it ends so early. It's only around 2 minutes 50, and I'd really love to see more with Ed and Laura. But as I've said, it is that energetic half of the duality which really shines here. The opener, Shangri-La, is bursting with energy and life. It is the pinnacle of this record. It's a multi-layered groove using layer upon layer of musical loops whilst managing to never feel cluttered, since each loop is so tightly focused around the core rhythm that it still allows the vocal melodies to breathe whilst also creating a rich sonic landscape. As well, it's topped with this triumphant chorus of "I didn't know how I felt so cold until I found my Shangri-La," a song loosely based around his experiences with Glastonbury Festival. It builds to a terrific ending crescendo as the chorus and the musical loops collide together. Similarly ambitious is Olympik, the longest song on the record at 8 minutes 30. It shares a similar sonic cohesion to Shangri-La, with that focus on rhythm and groove, but also with, I guess, a Talking Heads influence as well. Well, perhaps the most Radiohead-esque song on the album is Banksters. This was written after the 2008 financial crisis, and its themes are certainly reminiscent to those of Hail to the Thief, the Radiohead album with the most overt political messages. The chorus adds a burst of excitement and energy compared to some of the slower, more atmospherically driven songs which precede it. There's just a refreshing directness and straightforwardness on this one. Though sonically it still manages to experiment, it reminds me a lot of Paul Draper and the 90s Scottish alt-rock band Manson in its production style. To conclude, we're brought back to the duality at the centre of the record. It's an album which unfortunately feels like it had the long gestation period it did, with songs written over many years encompassing a variety of sounds and no clear, cohesive vision. But it is nevertheless a really enjoyable album, one that's brimming with joy and hope and life affirmation, and certainly one that I would recommend to a curious Radiohead fan. If I was going to rate it, I'd give this around a 7 out of 10. This has been my look at Earth by EOB. I hope you enjoyed this one. Comment, rate, subscribe, click the little bell icon, and this has been TheAIbumMan. Thanks for watching. Long live rock and roll.